Well, thank you for joining us with the Muskegon Pregnancy Services podcast. I'm Stacy, and I'm filling in for Deb Knoll, our executive director today. And I'm here with Shanda, who is our education coordinator at Muskegon Pregnancy Services. And she is going to share with us what she does. So my first question is, what is sexual risk avoidance curriculum?
So sexual risk avoidance curriculum is something that is taught in the either classroom or to students to teach them to avoid the high-risk behavior of teen sex. It is an approach that is holistic. It teaches them that there are other consequences to teen sex other than just physical consequences. There are things like emotional consequences, relational consequences, and things like that. It's, like I said, a holistic approach, so it teaches students to think about their future and concentrate on the choices that they're making now as far as how that looks towards their future.
Well, it sounds like a great curriculum. From what I understand, most schools are teaching the SRR, which is the sexual risk reduction. What is the difference between these two curriculums?
Okay, so sexual risk reduction is teaching kids how to reduce the risk when they're having the high-risk teen sex behavior. So that's going to be things like contraceptive use, and those also have still a risk involved. And so what we do is we teach kids that even though they are engaging in a high-risk behavior, just reducing the risk doesn't avoid the risk altogether.
That makes sense. It sounds like the SRA really prepares them then to make those healthy choices. So what credentials do you have to be a guest speaker or guest teacher in these classrooms?
Yes, so I am certified nationally through a company called Ascend, and there was a class that I had to take that included all the information that is required by the state of Michigan to be a guest teacher in the classroom. And I also just recently did my HIV certification with the MAISD here in Muskegon County.
So what are some topics that are covered under this curriculum?
Okay, so usually I cover about 7 topics, at least in the middle school classroom curriculum. The curriculum is called Willing to Wait. So our first lesson, we talk about what is sex and how everyone is not necessarily doing it. The CDC says that more than 60% of high school students are not engaging in sexual activity. We also go through how our bodies work and how pregnancy, how a baby is made. We also talk about STDs, including HIV, which is required by the state of Michigan to be taught in the classroom. And then we also go through things like legal things like consent, laws about sexting, and things regarding, again, holistic overview. We do building blocks of healthy relationships. We get to teach the children about the 5 love languages and what it would look like to be in an abusive relationship versus a healthy relationship. And then we also teach them their value, worth, and identity, and creating personal boundaries.
So you guys really dive in a lot deeper than just about sex. You really talk about the holistic, like you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
It sounds amazing. So, and I'm guessing our viewers are wondering how they can get this amazing program into their schools.
Yes, so the process is set up actually by the state of Michigan. Each school, if they choose to teach a sex education curriculum, are to form what's called a sex education advisory board. And there are stipulations as to who needs to be on that board. If you have any questions, I would contact your school board to find out if they have an active sexual education advisory board. What happens is that board looks over the curriculum, decides if it's what's right for the district, and then takes it to the school board. Once the school board looks over the curriculum, then they would approve it to be taught in the classroom.
Awesome. Well, and one last question before we wrap up. What other teaching opportunities do you have outside of the school classroom?
So I also can come to different groups of young people. I can come to church youth groups. I can go to parent groups. I've had a couple of parent education nights, which is a really good way to get that information out there of what is available to you. Again, this is a free resource through Muskegon Pregnancy Services. The best options is their education department, and that's the information that I would be able to share with you. So if anybody is interested, they can contact Muskegon Pregnancy Services.
And what is that number or email that would be best for them to reach out to?
So the email address that they could reach me directly is edu_SRA@bestoptions.org.
And the phone number is 231-726-2677. Well, thank you, Shanda, for coming out and sharing with us today about this wonderful program that can really empower these youth to make those great choices. And that wraps up our time. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next month.